author, their inspirational brainwave, and the insatiable appetite of the reader come together on the book club, exploring classical literature, novels, academic prose, and poetry. Dembo Baji's notebook on governance and public administration inculcates knowledge about the basic functions and machinery of government.
Under the Second Republic, put away largely the pillars of administration. And what do I mean? These are the financial instructions, the general orders, the Public Service Commission rules and regulations, the Foreign Service rules and regulations, the procurement rules and regulations. They decided to put this away and came to do their own things, which sent a lot of confusion, inconsistencies, incompetence in the administrative system.
An illustrative outlook on the public sector, boosting organizational delivery. That's Dembo Baji on the GRTS Book Club at this time. With a complete view that perfects the working structure of governance and public administration, Dembo Baji's notebook is a gem for students and public officials in government. The work explores the dynamics of public administration and processes of governance embodying the very core of the Gambia government. Examining public service from a well-organized perspective, Baji's structural outlook positions civil service order and discipline at the fore of policy implementation, building official efficiency at the juncture of development programs. The outlook on administration and governance presents a holistic view of necessary structures for public administration in a moment of democratic change and great expectancy for sustainable growth. Its colorful launch at the GTHI shifted timely attention to the public sector and demands for efficacy at the basis of administrational undertakings shaping the new Gambia.
Looking around this table, I can't help but be reminded by something that was said by a distinguished foreign lady married to a Gambian. And for 15 years, the lady never visited the Gambia. And on the 15 years, she came to the Gambia with the husband. And before they left, she told the husband, I have a question that I want to ask, and I hope you will not get offended. And the husband said, of course, darling, I will not be offended. He said, I've been married to you for 15 years. And during this period, I have been exposed to a number of Gambians outside of the Gambia. And all the Gambians I have met outside of the Gambia are highly educated, well-spoken, well-read, well-traveled, well-dressed. He said, yes, that is true. He said, then I've now come to the Gambia, and after 15 years, and having visited the Gambia for the first time, I'm kind of confused and perplexed. He said, why are you? He said, how come Gambians are more developed than their country? How come Gambians are more developed than their country? And looking around the room, I can say without fear of contradiction that we have the crème de la crème of this country in this room. In all its manifestations, the best and the brightest are in this room. I have had cause to interact with most of you, and I have seen most of you also in action outside of this country. But something very pivotal happened in 1994. You always used to refer to Dubai and Gambia and Singapore and Gambia. But that was 52 years ago when Ling Wan Yu and President Jawara got the flags of independence. Of course, students of history will recall that in 1965, Gambia was more developed than Singapore. In 1969, Gambia was more developed than China. In 1969, Gambia was more developed than India. But that was some 40, 45, 50 years ago. But in 1994, Gambia was more developed than Rwanda. And Rwanda had genocide in 1994, and Gambia had the death of democracy. In 1994, the per capita GDP of the Gambia was $750. The per capita GDP of Rwanda in 1994 was $425. 22 years down the road today, Rwanda's per capita GDP is $750. Gambia is $450. So if Milton Friedman were to visit the Gambia, he will put in a fourth category in terms of the rank of developing countries. In economics, you have developed countries, developing countries, less developed countries. That's the standard literature. But if you were to visit Gambia, he will say Gambia is undeveloping. That's the fact, and it's very painful, because we have the brains, we have the personalities to make a difference, but unfortunately, we have a lot of former football players here. When you play football, you put your best team forward. In the Gambia, the best team is sitting on the bench. And these are facts. Now, coming back to the issue at hand, I'm happy that Professor Gomez is here, because recently, I believe 2 years ago, he wrote a very nice piece which he put in documentary form called Reclaiming the Mantle. And that was dedicated to one of our other classmates, Baba Silla. So Baba, I think Professor said in that piece that Baba has reclaimed the mantle because in the field of literature, after Henry Peters, there was a void. And Baba Silla, who was in the class of 1970 of Armitage, reclaimed that mantle. I want to believe that by His Excellency Dembo Baji writing about governance and public administration, sooner or later, Professor Gomez will write another piece and say, reclaiming the civil service by His Excellency Dembo Baji.
The audience was a set of unique minds and personalities deeply aware of the outcomes of good governance and competent public administration.
Ladies and gentlemen, Outlook on Governance and Administration in the Gambia is a 73-page handbook on governance and administration in the Gambia, as the name implies. The work was compiled by Mr. Dembo Baji, a retired civil servant who had served in various capacities in the civil service of the Gambia, ranging from professional, administration, and diplomatic functions. It should therefore not be a surprise for such an illustrious son of the land to catalogue his work, experience, and knowledge in a reference book for posterity to benefit from. In the fourth section of the book, the author claims that the book primarily seeks to address the changing phases of administration in the Gambia in terms of procedures, processes, and practices. He adds that it will provide useful insights into the system of governance and how to ensure that the administrative order is followed to ensure effective and efficient implementation of the policy decisions of the government by the civil service. From the above, one may expect that Outlook on the Governance and Administration in the Gambia would provide proper guidelines to the present and future generations of public servants, as well as politicians in understanding the machinery and functions of government. The reader will not be surprised to find out that the book can serve as a reference book for students of public administration, management, and government. Furthermore, it will give public servants not only a basic knowledge of administration in the Gambia, but will also enhance their reflections on the anomalies and distortions on how government works in the Gambia.
And here, learned lawyer Fafambari delivers a resounding review, anchoring the author's work to an open platform of national development that relies on a competent public sector for success.
Because of what I have to do. But first of all, let me add my congratulations to Ambassador Dembo M. Baji for the excellent book he has produced, An Outlook on Governance and Administration in the Gambia. That every man should, in his lifetime, either have a son, or plant a tree, or write a book. Dembo has done all three admirably. The one we are here to celebrate is, I believe, the first of a series of masterpieces that will come out of the breast of this profound administrator, diplomat, and public servant by excellence, an illustrious son of the soil. I am therefore very pleased to join Professor Gomez and the erudite economics and public affairs analyst, Dr. Abdoulaye Toure, in welcoming Dembo to the growing feelings of Gambian authors and indeed of African literature. It has been said that after graduation, the average American reads one book a year. If there is any one book that you are yet to read in 2017, let it be Dembo Baji's book. And if there is only one book that you intend to read in 2018, let it be Dembo Baji's book. Ambassador Baji's book starts countless thoughts and queries. I believe it is the first publication by a seasoned professional Gambian administrator and diplomat. And I dare say that it may be many years before a more fundamental and more pathfinding study is published in this field.
In Chapter 3, the author delves into the crucial parallel fields in the executive, judiciary, and National Assembly. It outlines balances and checks, driving efficiency in public administration, and the important role played by a cohesive and progress-oriented system.
And therefore, I thought after over 3 decades of service to my country, I needed to pass on my knowledge, my experience, and my institutional memories to the younger ones in the service and to the academia, and as well as those clueless in government who don't know how administration works. So that the more we understand about administration and governance, the better for the country. And this is what motivated me, with the push of my children, to write something to inspire and to educate the young people in the service and in other people in government to know how the system works.
In the Foreign Service, Dembo Baji is a renowned figure, underlined by the author's industrious commitment to the attraction of strategic development partners for the Gambia. The country's diplomatic service played a defining role in the shaping of the new democracy and has continued positive exploits under a dynamic system led by a more open and robust foreign policy directive. The result, Gambia has quickly returned to the international scene under President Barrow. And so Dembo Baji's detailed publication inculcates basic knowledge about the functions and machinery of government, presenting a unique model to build a state of successful national objectives. Public administration, good governance, and sustainable growth What does it take to build a solid and efficient civil service that works to satisfy the needs and aspirations of the people? I am Ibrahim Jata, and this is the Book Club, convening to explore the world of books and writers. For answers to this question, we explore a new masterpiece on governance and administrational structures necessary to create a dynamic public service system. The work of a seasoned diplomat, Dembo Badji's new publication, Outlook on Administration and Governance in the Gambia, takes a complete look at the system of public administration and government in the country. Dembo Badji, thanks so much for joining us on the Book Club.
Thank you for inviting me.
Dembo Badji is a well-known figure in the civil and foreign service, with an experience that spans back to the First Republic of the Gambia. Today, we explore his latest inspiration, an outlook on administration and governance in the Gambia, a holistic look at the country's system of public administration.
I have realized that when officers retire from the civil service in this country, they go away with their knowledge, with their experiences, and with their institutional memories. There is hardly anything left behind for the younger ones to learn from. So I thought, having served my country over 3 decades, it is important that I share my knowledge, experience, and institutional memories with the younger generation, with the academia, and as well as strangers in government, that is this new government. I think it will be useful to them. And it's important that we endeavor to learn from each other. If we don't learn from each other, then others will write stories for us that may not be in our interest.
Having gone through the First Republic of Jawara and experienced 22 years of Yaya Jammeh and seen mistakes and ills that have affected the civil service and public administration, is it possible to entirely reform a civil service built on the efficacies of 2 decades?
Yes, it is possible, although it's a gigantic assignment. It will take gigantic task to do so, and also, to some extent, very radical decisions. You know, because a lot has gone wrong in the system. The Jawara government inherited a proper functioning of a government system, proper management system. The administration, the laws governing administration of the country were there, and he carried on in his presidency those systems that were very much in the interest and reflective of our Gambia. But after the First Republic, the first 10 years, yes, the system was also functioning very well, and after that it started to deviate from conventional ways to ways that has brought a lot of problems in implementing government policies and decisions, problems in the governance of the country, you know, problems in even our economic approach. Because what happened then, people started to invent their own rules and regulations. They started doing things in their own ways, putting away the pillars of administration. And administration gives order to a system of government. And it's just like a building without foundation. You know, now if you come to sit on top of the building, the roof of the building, and you decide that instead you want to damage the foundation, you will collapse.
Doesn't work.
So this is what happened. The people decided, the officers then, or under the Second Republic, put away largely the pillars of administration. And what do I mean? These are the financial instructions, the general orders, the Public Service Commission rules and regulations, the Foreign Service rules and regulations, the procurement rules and regulations. They decided to put this away and came to do their own things, which sent a lot of confusion, inconsistencies, incompetence in the administrative system.
An illustrative outlook on the public sector, boosting organizational delivery. That's Dembo Baji on the GRTS Book Club at this time.
I see how you put a lot of emphasis on the need for civil administrators and the civil service, policy making, and everything that happens in governance to be guided by the rule of law and administrational procedure.
Let me tell you one example, for example, just one clear example. The public enterprises we have, Ports Authority, GAMTEL, Social Security, Civil Aviation, Gambia Public Transport Command, these public enterprises were established by an act of parliament. And that act defines their structure, their management, and their governance system. But what have we seen? One day, directive was given that these parastatal or public enterprises now are under the office of the president.
They were reassigned.
Reassigned to the office of the president. And the office of the president had full control over them. An institution that has been established by an act of parliament, by law.
By law.
You cannot arbitrarily just move it to another office like that. They should have gone back to parliament and abrogate the previous act and come up with another one that gives the president the power to have hands in these parastatals.
So you're saying that reassigning of these parastatals was unconstitutional?
It was unconstitutional. It was unconstitutional, and the practice also does not go well with good governance. And this is why it went to an extent that even in the new republic, you have PMO appointing, attempting to appoint managing directors or parastatals or appointing ambassadors and things like that, because people have doing away with the bounds of law, with the rules and regulations governing the country. I mean, how on earth, if you want to get rid of somebody in a public enterprise, for God and heaven's sake, go to the board of directors of that public enterprise with your submission and let the board of directors take a decision. Rules or procedures that people should follow, because if you don't follow it, it sends wrong signals in the system. That's what I'm trying to tell the people, that administration gives order to a system of government. And it is surrounded by rules and regulations. It is guided by certain procedures, processes, and practices. If we do not adhere to those procedures, processes, and practices, we are sending confusion in the system, and that will negatively impact on the implementation strategy of the government.
You, for example, made mention of the VAT. I mean, let's swing it to an economic point of view, where when it was managed in such a way that it never translated into the economic reform government intended. And you also talk about the crackdown on forex bureaus as other forms, other examples of the exploitation of official powers. Tell me, when these conditions prevail over public administration, what happens?
Yeah, because those decisions were, we were told, were executive decisions. I mean, an announcement comes from the office of the president, you know, to say that chicken legs are banned from coming to the Gambia.
Yes.
When there is a Minister of Health, that is responsible for any public policy decisions on whether chicken legs should come to Gambia or not, it comes from the office of the president. You see, this is why the limits of power is very important for people to study in the book. In that case, the office of the president is overstepping its powers, its mandate. You know, there is no point you have ministries, you have officers, you have delegated responsibility to them, and then you take it from them and do things for yourself arbitrarily, unilaterally, in fact. Just like wake up in the morning, Gambia is out of the Commonwealth. Wake up in the morning, Gambia is the supreme, I don't know, Islamic state. You know? So these are things that are not good if people are not attentive to the limits of power. The limits of power in government are very important because we are talking about how to arrange our administrative order that is in consonance with good governance. Because good governance, to a large extent, depends on the efficiency and effectiveness of the administrative system. So the system has to be correct.
Now, Ambassador,
for us to have a climate of good governance.
How important is it for parastatals, government institutions and enterprises to enjoy some form of autonomy?
It is very important because, first of all, these public enterprises were the domestic economic wing of the economy, of the national economy. They were supposed to operate independently, generate funds that would be able to apply back to central government to meet the socio-economic needs of the country. Because don't forget this fact that it is central government, it is government that contract loans, external loans on behalf of these public enterprises. If you want to do a port expansion project, it is not Gambia Ports Authority that goes to get the loan. The Gambia government goes to get the loan on behalf of the Gambia Ports Authority. So we are therefore obliged to service our external debts as a government. But the parastatals, if they are performing very well, they too are supposed to service these debts to central government. If you remember years back, you will always hear Managing Director has gone to finance and presented a check of 30 million.
Exactly.
This has presented this. Because they are servicing the loans that government took on their behalf from external donors for which we are paying as a country. So they too are servicing those loans to government, central government.
So if they are not, responsibility is fulfilled.
So if they are not independent to operate, you know, viably, you know, and come out with good returns that will put them in a position to service their debts to central government, it makes the macroeconomic arrangement very difficult for the country. So it's important that parastatal bodies or public enterprises are left to be independent, to engage in their operations, and to, at the end of the day, yield profits that could go to supplement the government's budget and fulfilling the socio-economic needs of the country thereby. It's very important to leave them to be independent, to make sure that they are equipped with proper, trained manpower who will have the operational efficiency to be productive as an enterprise and to give those benefits back to central government. This is very important. That's why they are set up.
You also mentioned very important in your book. I realized it was all-encompassing. This is perhaps the most comprehensive work on our civil structure of public administration. The public ambassador relies to a great extent on good governance to ensure sustainable development. And local administrations are closer to the public domain, than the other systems, arms of government. Is it possible for local governance to create sustainable, meaningful structures for progress?
Yes, provided they are put in a decentralized position and less interference from central government. Because the local government system is supposed to operate as an autonomous body.
It's also separate, distinct from government.
So they are supposed to identify their own socio-economic needs, you know, put it in a plan, process it within the council itself, you know, get it approved by their management, by their directors, and then they implement it. So where they have shortfalls or they have inadequate funding to engage in the projects or development needs they have identified, then central government can come in and give them supplementary funds. In fact, in years in the First Republic, up to the beginning of the Second Republic, central government had a permanent subvention to all area councils. Permanent subvention, because they will not be able to generate enough revenue at the local level that will sustain their development efforts. So central government, in the context of the overall development of the country, gives them subvention. I don't think that is the case now. First, the quality of our representation is key to governance in this country. And the people should realize that there is a difference between symbolism and substance. Mayor is a symbol, but the substance is what is felt by the people, by that institution. Development is for nothing if it is not felt by the people. The people want to have a clean environment. They want to have good markets. They want to have good vegetable gardening. They want to be able to produce enough food, sell enough food in the market.
Car parks,
they want to have good car parks, decent car parks. They want to have, a very good environment that is free from all this pollution.
And it's
what is important.
It's the principal responsibility of public administrators to provide this.
Yes, public administrators in the municipalities.
In the municipalities.
Yeah, central government has its role, and municipalities have its role. But the doorsteps of development is at the foot of the municipalities. So they are key to the image of the government.
Now you talked earlier about strengthening local governance.
Yes.
In order to provide sustainable means for development.
Because they are closer to the people than the central government. It's in the political interest of any government to strengthen the local system.
Ambassador, you are a seasoned diplomat, who has experienced, the First Republic and the country's evolution from that time on to this stage. It's the cornerstone of international partnerships, diplomacy, creating the image and interests of nation states.
Yeah.
You make a special emphasis in your book on the need for a competent human resource base in the foreign service, but also underline the need to nurture career diplomats. How important is this?
Yes, it's very important. The problem in the Gambia is that our foreign, according to the existing laws, the foreign service is not standing on its own. It's not separated from home service. So that one can leave Ministry of Works and be posted to an embassy in Brussels.
So there's still a connection?
Yes, without necessarily the diplomatic background or experience or training. This is why it's difficult to develop career diplomats in Gambia. Because if foreign service were to stand on its own, separate from home service, then they will have the chance to take people, train them inside and outside Gambia, for them to become experienced or fair with international relations, and then you post them to our missions. But that is not the case. So the few that happen to be in the foreign ministry for some time and have had some experience and some exposure to diplomatic training and so forth, are the ones that should be sent out to our diplomatic missions. But they are not enough to cover the needs of the diplomatic missions. So therefore, they tend to take people from other places and send them to diplomatic missions. But like the home service, the danger only is the politicization of putting people both in home service and diplomatic service.
Yeah, there's a
because the foreign service diplomatic mission is supposed to rebrand the image of New Gambia. They're supposed to be very au fait with diplomatic, procedures, processes, practices, protocols, the conventions, international treaties, what is bilateral, what is multilateral, how do you go into all these negotiation arrangements. They are supposed to be trained people, supposed to be seasoned people, supposed to be people who have an idea of how to pursue the national interest. Because at the end of the day, it is not politics. Foreign policy is based on the national interest of a country. And the one with the capacity would do better than the one who doesn't have the capacity to enhance our image.
Ambassador, you also talk about career diplomats being critical for the extension of special interest, special national interest in the external world, and how it's usually career diplomats who can pursue those protocols.
Protocol, you see, we are career diplomats. Okay. And this is why during the impasse we took a position. You are aware of it, and all Gambians. You know, we took a position that contradicts the notion that these are all Jammeh's ambassadors. How are we? If we are Jammeh's ambassadors, during the impasse, we will not take a position that is against Jammeh's interests. You know, as diplomats, we are concerned, diplomacy is about image.
Image, okay.
I said in my earlier interview that on the 1st of December, the Gambia was put on the world map for all the right reasons. All right? And come on the 9th of December, the Gambia was put on the world map again for all the wrong reasons. That was during the time when the former president said, yes, I accept the verdict, I'm leaving. And then he turns around and said, I'm not leaving. So that sent wrong signal across the world. So as diplomats who are concerned with the image of the country, we could not morally and professionally keep quiet.
You have to do something.
We have to do something in the national interest. We do not see whether it's the former president or not former president. The national interest is paramount in our job as diplomats representing the Gambia. And so we took a position and asked him to step down and allow the will of the people to prevail for President Barrow to be in office. And by the same token, we wrote to President Barrow acknowledging his election victory and congratulating him as President of the Republic of the Gambia.
So the Foreign Service was the first
professional and moral duty as diplomats.
So the Foreign Service was the first, arm of government to actually support the new dispensation.
We are the first. Our actions drew the international attention to Gambia more. That's the time you had all groups writing now asking him to step down, all associations writing him to step down. But we were the people who actually bailed the cat. And we did that in the supreme interest of the Gambia. We did not care whether it was a president called Jammeh. The national interest was what mattered to us as diplomats, as ambassadors.
And it brings me to my next question, Ambassador. I mean, in your book, you underline administrative order and the rule of law, abiding by it as necessary for effective governance. And so embracing the bounds of the law become indispensable for good governance. In your estimation, when the limits of administrative decisions are defined by law, is there disregard, a misdemeanor?
Yes, a lot. For example, if you read my book, I've explained what is dismissal in the administrative context and how it is processed, you know. But in practice, what we saw was every day executive directive dismiss. And that is illegal in law. The law is very clear.
Public officials under Jammeh were apprehensive of their daily existence in the civil system.
Yeah, because you don't know, you wake up in the morning, you don't know whether you are coming back still in the service. You get dismissed so easily.
How does this affect performance?
It has a low impact on the performance of civil servants, because instead of doing your job professionally, you are afraid that executive action might come on you, so you will not do it. For example, there was a case in point, an agriculture officer who advised the president that drop this issue of Vision 2016 self-sufficiency for rice is not attainable because the farming population has moved from the rural areas to the urban areas, and in the urban area there's no farming population as such.
There was
so
adjourn
this food security for Gambia to a later date, you know, until we are able to revamp our agricultural sector and bring in programs and projects that would ensure a greater productive level for our agriculture. But right now, food security for Gambia is not attainable. He got upset.
He was unresponsive.
Yeah, he got upset. You know, This so-called scientific knowledge, this so-called scientific thing, I'm not going to accept it. You want to sabotage my government, you want to do this is what I'm telling you. So they put these things aside.
Ambassador, how important is it for government to use the scientific systems and structures of scientific knowledge at its disposal?
Yeah.
Like the health ministry,
yes.
the agriculture ministry.
Agriculture, education,
how should it use these structures, Ambassador?
Yeah, but this is why now, first, I always advise people who are in government. You see, the best way for this administrative system to be efficient, to be effective in delivering the goods to the Gambian people and to the benefit of the nation is that the technocrats must by all means remain professional.
They must be allowed to flourish.
They must be allowed to flourish. They must be free to give advice, to proffer advice that is in the interest of the country. Because if we do not show our technical competence, our technocratic competence in advising this new government on the right path to a system of government that is reflective of new Gambia, we will be running into problems. So the new Gambia should be interested in honest, capable, qualified civil servants to handle the service delivery. Because don't forget, the civil service is the administrative arm of a government responsible for the implementation of the socio-economic development of that government. It has to be capacitated. It has to be professional. It has to be properly structured, disciplined, and it has to be allowed to function properly for development to take place.
So, book club convening with Dembo Baji, an exploration of the Gambia's public administrational system and governance. Outlook on administration and governance in the Gambia. That's Dembo Baji's latest publication, seasoned look at the country's system of governance from the First Republic to date. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, the session continues. More reading and discovery of Dembo Baji's latest inspiration.
The book, When My Village Was My Village, took a lot of years before it came full circle.
It is entitled IG. Réew mi yépp nanguto nga wàcca. Alalu réew mi yépp danko sàcca. Leave our dear nation in peace. You found it and will leave it in one piece.
The land of vast greeneries and trees, the land of the flowing river, its streams, the land of sibilant winds, ever friendly, the land of peace, Mother Gambia.
What we are doing, particularly as part of the Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations, is to sensitize the community, to bring together as many victims as possible, to put their stories together so we can document these, so we have all of the information that is necessary to engage in very effective advocacy, and also information that could be used to prosecute Jammeh and his close associates.
An illustrative outlook on the public sector, boosting organizational delivery. That's Dembo Baji on the GRTS Book Club at this time.
Back again on the book club with Dembo Baji, examining his latest work exploring the Gambia system of public administration.
The rule of law in administration. In government, understanding rule of law is vital to administrative decisions. This chapter, therefore, gives an overview of the rule of law and management of public expectations. Nation building is a daunting task for the leadership of any country. We must be made to understand its accompanying responsibilities. A key element in this drive is the rule of law. This is particularly relevant because the mental attitude, forbearance, and democratic disposition of political leaders have a direct bearing and influence on the democratic process and the administrative system of the country.
What's the future of public administration and governance in the Gambia? And if your book becomes a Bible guiding our new reform, do you see the country building a model state of successful national objectives?
Yes. In fact, I'm not sure, but I think this new government is contemplating on civil service reform.
Yes.
And I hope that that takes place, in the proper conduct, in the proper manner, because that's key to building of New Gambia. It's okay, you can have no end of blueprint, no end of development strategy, but the capacity to deliver must be there.
That's all we have for you on this edition of the Book Club, but do continue to join us. Next week we convene with Professor Per Gomez and Hasum Sise, exploring a joint publication titled A Geometrical Representation of Banjul Battles from 1816 to 2016. That's the Book Club convening when we return next week. It's bye for now.